All episodes of the Real Women in Business podcast reflect the opinions and views of the guest and cast McCrory and do not reflect official policy or position of employers or clients. Thank you.
You're listening to the Real Women in Business podcast. I'm your host, Cass McCrory, and in this podcast, we highlight women in all kinds of businesses. For yourself, someone else, full-time, part-time, overtime hustle, together we will learn from and with one another. And if we get it right, it'll lift us all. Let's get into it.
Friends, today we're talking to Tess Wicks. Tess is the founder of Wander Wealthy, a wealth and mindset coach. In this conversation, we talk about our beliefs around money, how being of service should be our primary goal in business. We talk about living that dual life. Tess is in the midst of transitioning life to Italy, where she still gets some home bases in the US too. This is a really interesting conversation. We're going to give you some very tactical things and great questions that you can journal on to help you increase your financial acumen and create a bigger definition of wealth. You're going to love this one. Let's get to the show. Tess, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to chat with you today because you are a stranger in my world, and I don't know you at all. Your VA reached out and said, I think Tess would be a great person to have on your show. And so I'm super excited to have you. I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am a wealth and mindset coach. I work with primarily female business owners, mostly in the online coaching space, but also just online service-based business owners in general. And my entire mission ever since I started my business, which it's gone through many, many different changes and new types of target audience, all of that stuff. But my mission has always been to help people understand their finances, especially women. And I got really passionate about working with entrepreneurial women specifically because this is really a market that doesn't have a lot of resources available to them. And also, there's obviously between going from traditionally employed to self-employed, there's a lot of other things, other challenges that we face that, there's not a lot of content or even people out there really working primarily with entrepreneurial women when it comes to managing both a business and the business finances and their personal finances. So I meld the two. And then I also bring in mindset work as well, because that is often the core and the crux of a lot of our issues and a lot of our hangups. And I really help them see that making and managing money can be easy and it can be fun and it can be rewarding.
I love that. And because we're whole women here, we're showcasing everything. Tell us a little bit about who you are outside of the work.
Yeah, that's always something that I struggle to do, especially when it's, talking about my work. We were just talking about this before we jumped on. I am an American, but I live in Italy. My husband is Italian. And so I love travel and I always have loved traveling. We met on the road and, I just kind of uprooted my life and moved out here. And I, am originally from the Midwest and spent a lot of time in Chicago in my early stages of my career. And that's when I really started to branch out from the traditionally employed work I was doing. And outside of that, I love working out and traveling, obviously, and eating really delicious food and drinking all of the wine that I can just buy for like €3 at a grocery store here. It's amazing.
Whereabouts in Italy are you?
So that is actually all my life is answered with complicated answers. There's complicated questions. We call Milan home, so the north of Italy, although right now I am calling from southern Italy. My husband is from the most southern part of the heel of the boot. So people are becoming more and more aware of the region called Puglia, which makes up the entire heel of the boot. But we are down in Salento, which is a very unknown region to, I would say, most American tourists. Europeans are coming around to it, but it's really where Italians spend their summers and where they spend their holidays. So it's a beautiful place. I definitely recommend anyone to come travel and visit here. And we are right now in the process of looking for maybe crossing our fingers, a seaside home. So we're really excited about that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this space of authority in wealth and mindset?
This all came about from, I think, just my own personal experience with self-doubt around knowing anything about finance. I had a really great upbringing around money. My parents were always very good and diligent with their money. They taught me a lot of really wonderful lessons, but along with that, and I think I found this with a lot of my clients, when people have, strong upbringings around money and have good money mentors, they also carry a lot of unknown baggage or, different stories or, in the mindset space, we call it loyalty to what their parents had taught them or what the community they grew up in taught them, that then actually sabotages their own success. So that's something we can get into later, but that's part of my story. Along with that, I studied finance in college. I went to school to become an actuary, and I did that for a couple of years outside of college. An actuary, a lot of people don't know what they are, but they're really it's a career that assesses risk. And so it takes statistics like probability that a car will crash or that someone will die, literally, and it blends that with financial equations. And so I had a really good understanding of how finance worked in theory and in the big corporate arena. But when it came to my personal life and how to manage money and how to understand taxes and why you would buy insurance or how insurance works, like all of those questions, including investing and retirement, were things that I couldn't quite grasp myself because I didn't understand how it literally applied to me. And it's very much something we learn throughout experience, but we also really lack the literacy of it all. And so that really drove me when I made the shift from working in the finance world to becoming self-employed. And, I didn't know what I wanted to do specifically, but I was really thinking about how could I help others? And the way that I saw I could make the biggest impact was making the conversation more normalized with women specifically, because I was a minority in my schooling as well as in my workplace, because it's the money conversation and most women shy away, not because they don't feel like they could understand it, but in a way we are kind of, brought up in this society where there's not a lot of great female mentors who are also openly talking or teaching about money. And then, if you just want to talk about gender roles that we get brought up into this world, and that also doesn't help. So I wanted to bring that conversation about. I knew I had my own personal experience to draw from, as well as the understanding of just how money works and the financial equations, that I could start to essentially draw a line between an everyday woman who never studied finance or even maybe had studied finance, but also wanted to know how all this stuff applies to themselves and why it's so very important.
I love this. And we actually, in a previous episode, Bree Firestone, she's also a money kind of mentor, coach person. And I don't think we can have enough of these conversations, frankly. I think there's plenty of room in this market for lots of people to do this work because there's a lot of need. Yeah. I graduated from college with a business and economics degree. I took 6 or 7 accounting classes. I had no idea how anything worked.
Right.
Just no practical application of this. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're doing this work, and I love that you share it so openly. And you're like, this is our issue. It's that we have familiar rules that we've brought up to. What did you call them? Loyalties, right?
Mm-hmm. Royalties.
And so we have this feeling of this is how money works for me. And then you get to be a grown-up and you get to make your own definition of how it works. Mm-hmm. And you kind of need a guidepost to help you through that process. tell me a little bit about where you see your customers coming from a place of, okay, I need this. I know that I need this when fill in the blank.
I was just writing a blog post today about the many, many clients I've worked with, and they just come from all these different places and situations. And I think everyone has their own light bulb moment. I work with a lot of people who are going through life transitions. And so whether that be marriage or, newly married and starting to think about conjoining their finances, to freshly divorced, to going from managing and budgeting the income from their traditional 9-to-5 full-time job to working on their own finances as a self-employed person. Everyone has their own individual moment where they go, oh crap, I need to figure out what's going on here. I need to know what I'm doing. And, I guess I can't really pinpoint something where everyone has had something similar. I think it comes up in all of us. I have a 23-year-old teacher who just wants to retire with $1 million. And I have a 40-something multi-million-dollar business owner who just realized, we were just having a conversation and she was like, I need to hire you because the things you're preaching about that other women need to learn about and to do, or even just business owners in general for their business, I don't know anything about that. And I have this multi-million-dollar business. And so every situation is a little bit different. But I would say if you start feeling called to this idea that there is more to your money and what you've been, at least capable of doing with it thus far, then it might be that time to hire a coach or work with a professional. Because at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing I took away from my parents, I always looked up to them. I was like, they are so smart. How did they do this? How are they so good with money? And it's like, because they knew that they weren't the best people to be doing everything, making all the decisions when it came to money. And they looked for other people to help them when they needed it. So when you feel that calling that you need it, that's probably a good little nudge.
Yeah. There is like that intuitive thing that we all have within us that says, oh, you know what? In order to play bigger, I might need to actually make an investment in myself here.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah.
So you're in Italy. Mm-hmm. Where are your clients?
Most of them are in the US and Canada, but I do have some people in the UK. So mostly English speaking countries, but I would say the majority are US based.
And how does that work for your life? Like, does that create a lot of space for you in the mornings to kind of live the way you want to live? And then you work later into the evening? How does that work?
Yeah. This is actually a really good, a personal learning lesson that I went through. I was constantly keeping myself small for a long time before I made this move. And I've been here for about a year and a half now, but we were kind of in preparation phases before that. And I've traveled back and forth. But, 2 years ago, when I was really thinking about this might be my future, I kept making excuses for why not to grow and build my business in a certain way. And I was always like, I can't do one-on-one coaching because I won't have enough time, or I can't serve too many people because then they'll be too demanding and I'll be sleeping while they're asking me questions. And it's so funny, but I think we always come around the other side and we realize that all these limiting beliefs and thoughts that we have just have no basis. So I decided to just go for it anyway. And yeah, you're exactly right. I pretty much start working around 10 or 11 in the morning. I'd really take my times in my mornings, and my mornings are my favorite. So it's wonderful. I always had that problem when I was traditionally employed and had quite literally a 9 to 5:30 job where I would still get to work late because I would wake up and I would work out and I would drink coffee and I would talk to my roommate, and I really needed that time to decompress. And now I get to do that. And so I use my mornings to really just work on myself and work on my own money mindset and my own, all the big mindset stuff that I do, and meditate and all that. And then I pretty much work from 10 or 11 until anywhere between 5, 6, 7, or 8 at night. And it's fairly flowing. I'm not too rigid. I have days where I'm willing to do calls and podcast interviews and all that good stuff. And sometimes I even open up my Sundays, and then I say, if I work on a Sunday afternoon, then I don't work on Friday or something like that. So I just let what happens. And then I know where my boundaries are and when to draw the line there.
As an entrepreneur, I've felt that same, like going with the flow of it and saying, okay, you know what, I did have to work on this day and that wasn't the best, but I'm going to take a little bit of extra here in place of that. And I think that managing your own fluidity in that and saying, hey, this is okay for me to do. I have permission to do this because I write my own rules here as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But then when you get the pushback from the client where it's like, it's Monday, it's 10 a.m., where are you? It's kind of like, well, wait a second. Who's in control of this ship here? There's some struggle there. I'd love for your take on how to manage that mindset piece of it.
Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting, the mindset thing is something I really had to work on in the early days, because I came from such a traditional, and especially I was in consulting. So it wasn't just like you traditionally work from 9 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. It was like you work as much as you possibly can and sleep as little as you can. And even when you're sick, you still work when you're in bed at home. So it was I had to do a lot of work on allowing and being okay and knowing that I can both have a successful business and work 30 or 20 hours a week. And I can make more than I worked when I was working 80, 90 hours a week. And that came from both my programming of what work and success meant from my early 20s, but also from my programming of the family paradigms that I was very loyal to, which is my dad is a business owner, or my parents own this small business, but my dad is the primary person who was working all the time and working a lot on the road. And on top of that, doing the hard labor work because he owns a construction company. So it's like, not only is he always working and usually gone, but also he's like, if he feels the need to, he goes out and he's the one swinging the hammer. And so that was so wired deep within me that when I would work less or when I would work a strange schedule, I felt bad, or I felt like I was breaking some unnamed rule. And like, that's not what work is supposed to be. And work needs to look like something else. So I had to work a lot on the mindset piece with that. And also just knowing that the idea of I can work less and have the success or the business that I really want to build, and allowing for that to happen. And then when it comes to the clients, this is something that I think is so important for anyone who works with clients in any way, shape, or form. And this is going to be really important for your mindset, but it's a more tactical, tangible thing. And it's just to have very, very clear guidelines in your working agreement together. And so for me, we're very specific about when we meet and to respect those boundaries for each of us, that we meet at this specific time. And then there's cancellation policies and whatnot drawn in there. But there's also, if you send me an email, I will respond to you within 24 hours during the week, 48 hours on the weekends. And so having those really allows me to live the life that I want to live. It shows my clients that this is when you can expect to hear from me or me to get back to you. You can email me as many times as you want, but what the policy is. I think that's so important, because otherwise, especially business owners who feel like their clients are their only, option for survival, they'll essentially work themselves to the bone and not allow themselves to have this business and the lifestyle that they probably started the business to have in the first place.
I think that is a very quicksandy, familiar trap that entrepreneurs have probably found themselves in, where they're like, I got into this business so that I could do this. But because my conditioning is to do something else, I created that in my business. And it's funny. I was talking to a client of mine the other day, and she just made this big leap, and now she's no longer has her full-time job. And she's like, I went from having one boss to having like 18 bosses. Because those are her clients. And it's like, well, yes, if you put them in a position of being your boss, but the boundary work that you need to do now is in saying, okay, how do I define a client differently than I defined my boss? Because if you just transition your clients into the role that you used to put in for your boss, yeah, you're going to be run by them. I want to get into what you see as the work really specifically, because I think sometimes what holds people back from reaching out to a coach or getting some help is that they don't know what that looks like tactically. It's like when you say we're going to do some mindset work, can you give us a little bit of an example of what that looks like?
Yeah. So especially when working with a coach, I think one thing just to know about working with a coach in general is that the coach is there to meet you where you are. And this is something I find so often with a lot of my clients, especially when we first start working together, but even like weeks in or months in of working together, is they come to me very apologetically, or very, you can see the shame or the disappointment that they have in their eyes. And when they're communicating, I was feeling this, or I did this, and they expect me as the coach to be disappointed or to judge them or to, punish them in some way, shape, or form. And that is the first thing, especially when we talk about money. There is something that for many, many, many of us, when we are opening ourselves up about our ignorance and our mistakes, or just, things that we do or do not do that might be looked at as good or bad, we feel shameful about that. And we expect in any conversation, the person on the other side to judge and to react. And a coach's job is just to meet you where you are and to help you get to where you're going. And so that's the very first thing I always want to reiterate, because there's so much fear in being judged, especially with money, because there's so much emotion wrapped around it. But when it comes to working on money mindset specifically, a lot of what the work looks like is we just start painting a picture and getting really clear about why you do the things you do. What are the things that you learned, specifically when, your subconscious mind was starting to become developed? Because a lot of the things and the choices we make in adulthood are coming from our subconscious programming. And so our subconscious programming really happened at like the deepest level of programming happened between the ages of 0 and 7. So I basically take my client through exercises to bring up experiences from that age range, usually 6 or 7, because like I can't even think about when I was 4 years old. But really starting to paint a very specific picture and uncover the thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments that they observed of the people in their lives that were the biggest influence then when it came to money. So that could be, that their parents fought about money and maybe they felt like they were the center of those arguments, or they were one of the biggest problems when it came to money. We would look at how their parents judged wealthy people, or how they judged poor people, or people who were just less fortunate than them. We would look at how, even expanding beyond just parents. I grew up in a very small community. And so a lot of our wiring, the decisions we made about money, the things that we bought or didn't buy, were because we were concerned about what the overall community would think. So you see this a lot in people who grow up very tied to maybe like a church environment or some other cultural community aspect that they grew up in. Their parents were really locked in there, but also just like small town culture, or small neighborhood culture. And so starting to identify some of those judgments really helps people go, oh, that's why I do this, or that's why I make these decisions, or that's why I continue to keep myself from taking on these bigger opportunities, because I fear XYZ might happen, or I fear my parents might think that I'm greedy, or that I'm a terrible person, or if I get rich, all I'm going to do is, waste my money in bad ways. And so that's kind of where we start. And then we really just work on it depends on the client, but we can use a bunch of different modalities to move them through some of these emotions that are really deep seated in them. And even just allowing and removing, what we like to do is neutralize the emotion of money, the emotions that we hold around money, because when we think about money, we think of it as a source of survival, when in fact, money is not the actual thing that we need to survive. If you think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need food, water, shelter. As we move up, we need community, loving relationships, the ability to reproduce or recreate in some way. And in modern times, money has just joined the conversations, joined the society that we live in as a middleman, essentially. And so money actually means nothing, but we make it mean everything, because the way that we think of it as our ability to survive. So we try to neutralize our feelings around money and see money as a tool so that we can use it for whatever it is that we ultimately want, and being okay with things that you want or you don't want, and the decisions and the actions that you make. So that's it in a nutshell.
I like it. I think that's really great to share, because I think some things that hold us back when we don't know how to ask for help is we don't know what the help looks like. We don't know if we want that. And so when you know what that is, and you can say, okay, we're going to talk about this, and this is how it looks, and this is how it plays out, well, then it's very easy to opt in.
Mm-hmm.
You said something that I want to just underline, though. You said you need to see money as a tool to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
What if you don't know what you want?
That's where the other side of the equation comes in a little bit. So I, pride myself in being a coach that takes the mindset piece and brings in the tangible financial coaching piece, the piece where we sit down and we go through, what are your goals and what does that ultimately look like from a financial perspective? And, if you're still sitting there going, I don't know what I want, what I tell my clients? I say, that's okay. Let's find a place and find the best thing for you of what you can be doing with your money or with your time or with whatever, tool and resource that you have available to you. And let's find the best place to put it to work for you until you do decide what you want. So the best example is so many people that I work with are hearing that they need to have a home, they need to buy a house, but have no idea if they actually want to buy a house. And so I say, it's okay if you don't want to buy a house, or if you don't know if you might want to buy a house someday. Let's find that, that extra money, you want to do something with it, but you don't know what. And let's just put it in a place that is good for now, that will give you options. And when we talk about, money and finances, I think the core of it is for me, it's important for my clients to build their financial literacy and understanding how they can leverage the tools available to them so they can use it to grow their wealth, so they have options, so that no longer do they feel like they have to do anything, but they get to do what it is they want with their money or their time or whatever other tool or resource they have.
I like that. Money is the tool that lets you get to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you were to meet with somebody that's just starting off on an entrepreneurial journey, what piece of financial advice would you give them?
So many. If they're just starting out, I think, the concerns that people have just starting out is so vastly different from what you have, 2-3 years down the road. And I think the biggest thing with people just starting out is, how am I going to make money? How is it going to come in? How can I sell what it is that I have? And I think instead of, and this is kind of crazy because it goes against my business and what I ultimately help people do, which is manage money. But it's to not think about the money. So I think from just a place of, from a mindset perspective, you have to drop into service and impact and know, I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to do my best and I'm going to put a price on it. I think at the very least, you have to set a price for your services. You can do 1, 2, maybe 3, free giveaways, like free beta tests, if you really have to. If you could set something low price, but if you really have to, you can do 3 max, like set that maximum for yourself and then take it and just focus on, how can I transform the lives, whether it's customers or clients or whatever your business is, but how can I transform the lives of others in the best way possible and show up in that way. And then I think, you'll have the people that are the right fit for what it is that you're offering and the message that you're sharing come to you. And as long as you have a price tacked onto that, you can sell it, you can make money, and then from there you can course correct. And the second thing that I think is just important is to know nothing is set in stone. Doing one thing doesn't mean you cannot do another thing, or selling this product for this price doesn't mean you can't sell it at a different price later, or, being a health and fitness coach and then deciding you want to be a life coach, do it. Just don't worry that it's going to look bad or that you're going to lose a bunch of people. All of it shakes out for the better. And you just have to find your path in your own way. So, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have things that you need to solve and overcome. And so just know that, like, starting now and getting the money in the door is the best place to start. And then you can see how it shakes out from there and start implementing strategies and tactics and work on the rest, because you'll never be ready. You'll never really feel like ready enough. You just have to do it before you dive in.
You get some really great advice in there. And I want to just call out a piece of this and have a deeper conversation about it, because nothing is set in stone. Mm-hmm. And I'm always telling people, if they're feeling in a place of stuck. Erin Tilford had this quote a few weeks ago that I shared, and I'll bring it back into the show notes about, whenever you feel stuck, it's because you think where you are is all there is. Mm-hmm. Which is just a beautiful way to say that. And that there's a much bigger space than what you're doing. And whenever you're feeling stuck, to go macro, to zoom out, to see a bigger picture. And then I love what you said about being of service. Like, I definitely feel very tightly aligned to that myself. It's like, if what I'm doing is of service, and as long as I monetize that in some way, we are making forward progress. Mm-hmm. And that's something. I have a colleague of mine who's in Macedonia, and he is like just the sweetest man, and I adore him. And he's in this place of kind of transition right now where he's like, I know what I want to do. Like, do I want to be here? Do I want to be in the States? Where's my energy here? But I said, you're not deciding for forever. I think so frequently we get caught up in this idea of it's once and for all. I'm making this decision. This is who I am, and that's it forever. Mm-hmm. I have yet to make that kind of decision outside of having a child.
Right.
That's the only one that I've made. And, now my husband too, but for the most part, like really there's just a handful of decisions that you'll make in your life that are once and for all.
Mm-hmm. And your business does not ever have to be one of those. And I think it's important. I love that, at the beginning of this show, you were like, what are you outside of your business? Because I think we are all so much outside of our business, but we get really wrapped in, which is why I was like, that's a really hard question for me, because I so often find myself talking about business. And really what I teach and what I work with my clients on is identifying, like, what is your business? What is the lifestyle that your business is allowing you to live? And when, just to bring it back to the money piece, when it comes to people who build a business and then it grows into however it grows and whatever behemoth it grows into, we then all of a sudden adapt our life into the boundaries that our business has set for us. And so I have a workshop where I really work with the attendees to dream again, to go back to that starting point where we were dreaming about having time freedom and location freedom, or, the freedom to be our own boss. So we don't have to report to that guy, or whatever it is that we ultimately wanted, and go back to that, because so often we build this thing and then that's the thing that drives and makes the decisions for our life. And we get really stuck in that. And when it comes to the money piece, a lot of it for my clients is, well, I'm paying myself this, or I'm not paying myself anything, which is usually more of the story, because that's what my business can't afford. And I always want to break them out of that and say, what would you pay yourself if your business could afford to pay you anything and you wanted to build the dream life that you were ultimately dreaming about when you started? Or maybe it's changed. That's cool too. Do that. And so we set that number, and then we dive into, okay, how can your business support that? Where can we take your business to support that type of lifestyle so it can pay you what you ultimately want? Because, if it was just the money, you could, find a job and go work it and get paid. But it's more than just the money. It's more than just the money, but it's also more than just the business. They should be supporting each other.
So there's like two very specific questions that we want people to think about and sit in after this podcast is over today. And it's, what would you pay yourself? And then how can your business support paying you that? Mm-hmm. I think, I do a lot of work with businesses where is your business viable? That's the question. Is this a viable business? And the answer is any business can be viable. It just depends on how much you need to pay yourself and everything else.
Right.
Not everything actually has to make money. Mm-hmm. You can do things just for the joy. What are you doing right now that is just for the joy?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing? Well, we're just spending 2 weeks in southern Italy. And today I have this big, here I am trying to buy a house by the sea. And I'm deathly afraid of open water. Not deathly afraid, but I do not like it. So we've been really just enjoying the freedom. And it's funny because we could do this in Milan in a way, but we don't, because it's the environment that creates what you believe you are able to do. So being in the South, it's so much more relaxed. People take life slower here. So during lunchtime, I went for a run. My husband went for a swim. And then we met. I ran in my swimsuit and we met at the sea when he was done swimming. And then I get to jump in, and I'm doing exposure therapy to get myself excited for going into the sea without thinking things are going to come and eat my feet. Yeah.
I understand that feeling.
The other thing I do is pretty much every day, I just go for a walk and enjoy. I just love walking. So nice.
Have you learned Italian? Are you a fluent Italian speaker?
I have learned Italian. I wouldn't call myself fluent, but I can hold a conversation when I'm not too tired. I think if you probably have bilingual listeners, but learning a language is extremely exhausting. You get very, very like physically tired after trying to sit and listen to a table full of conversation. But yes, my in-laws do not speak English, so it was a need to learn. So I can hold my own.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you use any tools? I'm curious because learning Italian has been on my list of things that I'd like to do, and spending like some serious time in Italy.
Uh-huh.
Did you use like a Rosetta Stone? Did you listen to a podcast? Like, how did you immerse yourself in outside of just being there to learn?
So I started with Duolingo.
Okay.
I mean, the easiest way, I think, to expose yourself. It's one of the many language learning apps. It's free. I started there. I learned, and then I did listen to a podcast called I think it's Coffee Break Italian or something like that. And it's a Scottish man and a Scottish woman and then an Italian speaker, and they speak English but also Italian. And then I went to Italian school for 6 months. But my biggest struggle in learning Italian was actually overcoming perfectionism. Because I was always very good at school because I was very good at memorizing and regurgitating information. And that's what the US school system is set up to do. And so for me, I then from school had this expectation for myself to be just like a good student. So going through Italian school, the first 6 months were amazing because I was just exposed to so much conversation. They never spoke English to us. So you just had, because it was people from Russia and China and Portugal and Brazil and all over the world, that the single language we could communicate in was Italian. So it was really, really great for all of the basic foundations. And then it started getting to like very intense grammar. And that's when I just started getting burnt out because I wanted to be good. So instead of focusing on just being conversational and speaking to the people at the grocery store and the gym, I was having social anxiety about being perfect. So honestly, the best tool is just to go to people who you know don't speak English, so you have to speak Italian. Obviously hard to do, but that's usually one of the best ways to do it, is because at least if you have that perfectionism in you, it's to just force yourself to do it so that they don't, because you'll find so many people will default to English then. If they know that you're trying but you can't quite get it out, they'll just start speaking to you in English and you're like, no, that's not the point.
Awesome. Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to chat about today that we haven't gotten to?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of really great stuff.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, then I've got a lightning round of questions that we'll go through.
Okay.
What is your go-to jam when you need to up your energy?
Oh, right now it changes all the time, but right now is pretty much anything by Lizzo.
Nice. What time do you wake up?
In Italy, I wake up at between 7:30 and 8. In the US, it's way earlier, but we eat dinner here at like 9 or 10 p.m. So, life is different.
What's breakfast look like?
In Italy, it's coffee and either a yogurt or a croissant, which they call cornetto. In the States, it is a bowl of oatmeal.
Nice.
See, life is different depending on where you live.
I usually don't take a break in the lightning round here to chat about something, but I think that there is something really interesting that I want to dig into there, because sometimes people are like, you can't move and change your life, but I think you actually kind of can. I
Yeah.
think if you move, you will have a change, and you get a different opportunity to kind of program things. Like, I'll even find this in my work. Like, if I need to change my energy around my work, I will rearrange my office. Because physical change does change how you respond and act.
Right. I had a very difficult time with this because, we all hear that happiness is not a place, it is controlled internally. And I truly believe that. But there is a lot in your environment that can impact just how you treat yourself and the things that you do, and the way that the culture or the society of that area, where things are acceptable or unacceptable, or things are normal or things are not, there's just so much difference. So if you're talking country to country, like, I had to change because the things I was forcing were not working for me. It's nearly impossible to eat dinner before 7:30 p.m. in Italy. No restaurant will be open. So you have to eat dinner later. And therefore you might end up sleeping in, but that's okay because you work later and things just adjust. It is very hard to find coffee shops to work from. And so, or to find, smoothie bowls with acai and things that don't taste very, very weird and not actually that enjoyable. So you adapt to the types of food that you're willing to eat, and the type of activity that you're willing to do. So, even the small things of just changing up your work environment totally has a psychological change on, whether you're motivated or inspired or feeling creative or whatever it is that you need.
I love that. And I love that you're answering these questions in both dualities. So here's where it is when I'm in Italy, and here's where it is when I'm in the States. Where do you feel like you're most resonant right now?
Honestly, that's a really hard question to answer. I just say that I have 4 homes, and I'm okay with that. The last 2 years of my life, I've just been in transition, which is a very difficult place to be in if you let it be difficult. And so I've decided to let it be, just to allow it to be my residency is just the world, wherever I am at the time. And I'm allowing that to be okay. I don't have to have one place that I call home.
Yeah. Do you follow Jess Lively, Tess?
I do. I haven't followed her I follow her in spurts. We'll say that.
Okay. Yeah. I think she's kind of in a similar space where she has been in this place of kind of in flow, anticipating that she's going to land. Mm-hmm. The landing hasn't appeared just yet. And I think that's a really interesting space to be in, and to show your comfort in yourself by being uncomfortable with where you're at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Coffee or tea?
Coffee all the way.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
In the States, I'm a morning person, and in Italy, I'm a late morning person.
It's morning in Italy. It's just morning in Italy. It's not late. What is a book you recommend frequently?
For money mindset, I recommend Tapping into Wealth by Margaret Lynch all the time.
Okay. What can someone do to help you feel appreciated?
To help me feel appreciated?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a nice question. I don't know. Reach out. Just reach out. Just say hi.
Nice. I like it, Tess.
Even my friends, I just like it when my friends text me randomly. It's so nice.
I think that so frequently we think that everybody is so busy, or we create a belief that if we don't have anything of value to say, that we shouldn't reach out. And what this question has uncovered for me the most in, the episodes that we've done thus far is we all just want to know that we matter to somebody, and that feeling appreciated, it has its own value. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at wanderwealthy.com. That pretty much links to everything. But if you want to just directly go to Instagram, I spend most of my time there. I'm at Tess_Wicks.
Awesome. Tess, thanks so much for your time today. This has been really awesome and so many great takeaways. Thank you.
Thank you. It was so fun to talk to you, and you ask such wonderful questions. So I really appreciate it.
I'm glad it was a good time for you too.